All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm so glad all of you could join us tonight for this 5 steps for a healthier you, a healthier and happier life, which is the first seminar in a 4-part series that is hosted by Lifting Up STL and McDaniel Nutrition Therapy. My name is Melissa Brown, and I am a registered dietitian with McDaniel Nutrition, a private nutrition practice here in St. Louis. Tonight's session is being recorded so that it can be watched at a later time. So if you want to come back and rewatch or share this with anyone, you will be able to do that. Throughout tonight's session, you will have the opportunity to respond to questions and reflect on how the information that I am sharing applies to your life. And we'll also have time for questions and answers at the end of tonight's session. So you'll be able to share those in the chat or unmute yourselves and participate that way as well. One thing the registered dietitians at McDaniel Nutrition pride ourselves on is being an evidence-based practice. And you will notice throughout this presentation that I refer to studies and research. And nutrition is about science, and it should be backed up by science. In addition, many of the ideas here stem from the success stories of real people, people like you. And finally, the combined years of nutrition practice from our dietitians at McDaniel Nutrition inform our work. My work with clients is centered on the truth that they know themselves best. You know yourself best, better than me, better than any of your healthcare providers. And that is true for all of us. So with that in mind, we're going to start with a poll, and these questions you'll be able to answer anonymously. So the first one is, what is the one thing that, if done consistently, would improve your health? So I'll give everyone a few minutes if you want to answer this question. And again, your response will be anonymous. All right. Well, it seems like maybe an open-ended question is kind of a lot of pressure to open up with. Oh, okay, great. Someone answered. Okay, the poll isn't working. Let's try something. So one of you has shared in the chat that for you, that would be exercise. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. All right. So I am not sure why. Looks like not sure what's going on with the polls, so we'll see if the next one works any better. But thank you to everyone who shared in the chat. So exercise, prioritizing getting 8 hours of sleep regularly, super important. And that's going to tie into a lot of what we are talking about tonight. All right, I'm going to try another poll with this slide. So step one is building a better start and looking at, is it better to eat more food earlier in the day or later in the day? This is a multiple choice question, so we'll see if this one works better. Is it better to eat more food earlier in the day or later in the day? Choices here are earlier is better, later is better, or it doesn't make a difference. All right. All right, so it looks like some of your answers came through on this one. We have 2 people saying that earlier in the day is better and 1 person saying it doesn't make a difference. So those of you who selected that earlier in the day is better, you are spot on with that. And we're gonna talk about that and kind of look at why that is. So pictured here are quantities of foods and different eating times throughout the day. And this is an example of how most adults in the US spread out their food intake. So just kind of looking at this and thinking about what you notice about this typical eating pattern. And so you can see, you know, a lot of people don't eat anything for breakfast, or maybe a granola bar, protein bar, or a piece of fruit, something like that. So if anything, a little bit of food in the morning, maybe a sandwich, something like that for lunch. And then the bulk of the food, the bulk of the energy that most people are consuming comes at dinner time and later. And so this type of eating pattern means that our body doesn't really get the fuel at the right time, when we most need it, when we can make both the best use of it, and when it's most helpful for our metabolisms. And so why is this important? And let's go back here. Here we go. So what are some of the benefits of morning fuel, which usually for most of us is breakfast, but that can look like different things. And on this poll question, you can select multiple choices. All right, so the answer here, well, these are all correct, and because the answer is all of the above. So morning fuel and food at breakfast is an opportunity for meeting your daily nutrition needs, supporting better brain function, gut health, and lowering your risk of heart disease. So a great variety of benefits from breakfast. The next couple of slides are images from a study that looked at what time people are eating, the food they're eating, what time of day, and using a scale to assess the healthiness of that. So the basic takeaway from this is that breakfast is the healthiest meal. And in general, when we're looking at nutrient intake, it gets less healthy as the day goes on. And so by the time we get to dinner, that's about 16% less healthy than breakfast. So when we make time for breakfast, it is often a great opportunity to get in a lot of nutrients, to get some nutrition in our day. The other thing about eating breakfast is it helps with controlling cravings and hunger throughout the day. So sometimes a reason for skipping breakfast is, if you just aren't usually hungry and are maybe feeling like that's a way you can save on calories, really common thinking. The research shows us that people who skip breakfast actually eat total, even without anything for breakfast, about 7% more food in terms of caloric intake throughout the day. So while it's tempting to think of skipping breakfast as a way to save on calories, that often isn't the case. Breakfast is really important because of some of the nutrients that are in some breakfast foods that we're not getting enough of. So one of those is fiber. Most Americans are not meeting the recommended daily intake of fiber. And you'll see over here on the left, all of these health benefits of consuming adequate fiber. So gut health, immune health, weight management, mental health, and lowered risk of a variety of chronic diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, and colon cancer. On this table here on the right, looks at some breakfast swaps to help you pack in more fiber. So this column here, these are common breakfast foods that are lower in fiber. This column here under add are additions or substitutions that you could make that will pack in more fiber to those breakfasts that you're choosing. So choosing anytime you can choose 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grains. Oatmeal is a whole grain, so it doesn't need any special kind of label. Consuming the whole fruit, a piece of fruit, as compared to fruit juice, you're going to get all the vitamins that are in the juice plus the fiber benefit. And then often homemade smoothies, you can add in things to bump up the fiber content compared to what you might get in a lot of common bottled smoothies. Fiber isn't the only important nutrient we have here. So most people get in a little bit of protein in the morning, a bit more at lunch, and the majority of their protein at dinner. But what this graph is showing is really the optimal way of spreading protein out throughout the day. And you don't, for those of us, you might care about, you might be thinking about gaining muscle mass, but you don't have to be a bodybuilder to care about this. Spreading protein intake out throughout the day helps with both building and maintaining muscle mass. And maintaining muscle mass is important for healthy aging as well as for weight management. So using breakfast as an opportunity to get in protein. And we'll look at some breakfast ideas and ways to do that in a couple more slides. When it comes to chronic disease risk, we have information here from a study on heart health that was in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. The study found that breakfast skippers were 87% more likely to die from cardiovascular disease and stroke than those who ate breakfast every day. So positive findings for breakfast and heart health. And is that simply because someone is eating breakfast? Well, no, it ties back to, what's found in breakfast when we're talking about that fiber, when we're talking about protein and other important nutrients. So just thinking about exploring a little bit about what if you are someone who eats either a small breakfast or nothing at all in the morning, looking at what is that barrier for you. And see if this comes up. Okay. I don't know if this is coming up as a poll, so if you want to share in the chat, you are welcome to. You can either use one of these suggestions on this slide or add your own response. But participation is optional. Time, so we got in the chat. Okay, time, being busy feeding other people, little people in the morning. Definitely. So there can be a lot for those of us who have young kids at home. There can be a lot going on in the morning and not feeling hungry. Yep, super common. All right. So in order to kind of think about, okay, you've identified maybe a barrier or two for you, looking at some ways here to make the most of breakfast. If you are going to eat breakfast, whether that's starting to eat breakfast, whether that's looking at what you could add to your breakfast to really get the most out of it. And so these pictures here show some ideas for breakfast that are both protein and fiber rich. For fiber, thinking about whole grains like oats, 100% whole grain bread. You have muffins made with whole wheat flour or oat flour, fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds. And breakfast can really look like anything. It does not have to be traditional, American breakfast foods. Some people really like having a savory breakfast, and that might include dinner leftovers. So you can definitely think outside of the box here if traditional breakfast foods are not your thing. And then for protein, thinking about eggs, yogurt, milk, nuts and seeds, nut butters, or lean meats as ways to build protein into breakfast. So to recap what we've seen in the last slides, breakfast is an important source of key nutrients, including fiber, protein, and a variety of vitamins and minerals. Eating breakfast helps give a solid foundation to your nutrition for the day. It can help curb cravings, perform better throughout the day, and have muscle maintenance and muscle building benefits, as well as reduced inflammation. Step 2 is pump up the plants. And when we're looking at that, the recommendation is related to the findings that most of us are not eating the recommended amounts of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And all of those are plant foods that come from plants. Exploring that a little bit more, 9 out of 10 of us aren't meeting the fruit and vegetable recommendations. We're actually doing a little bit better with vegetables than with fruit. But unfortunately, we're actually doing worse with overall fruit and vegetable consumption as compared to 2004. So definitely something that is an area of opportunity for a lot of us. The reason that we want to focus on foods that come from plants, which again are including vegetables, fruits, whole grains, as well as nuts and seeds, those are all plant foods, and beans, legumes. And so this is from a study finding that many types of chronic disease could be prevented if we ate more fruits and vegetables and whole grains, as well as maintained activity levels and avoided smoking. So we can think of this as building on step 1 with breakfast. What are ways you can incorporate plants into breakfast? Other ideas for helping add more plants is that meal planning can help. So even just a few minutes ahead of time to think about your meals for the day, for the week, can help naturally build in some of this balance and move you more in this direction. When we're talking about fruits and vegetables, all forms can fit. So fresh, frozen, canned, dried, and 100% juice. Again, remembering that there are some nutrient benefits to eating the whole fruit versus drinking fruit juice. And this slide shows a variety of images. Each rectangle, each little box here, it pictures what it would look like to get the recommended servings of fruits and vegetables, which is 2 cups of fruit a day and 2.5 cups of vegetables. So different ways that this can look in picture form, and then to put that into words and kind of just give an example here of 3 meals and a day that includes 3 meals and 2 snacks for the fruits and vegetables, getting in a piece of fruit at breakfast, getting some more fruit, whether fresh, dried, frozen, with a snack. Lunch has some salad greens and fruit, working some vegetables into a snack, and vegetables with dinner. And from the plant perspective, we also have the whole grain cereal here, whole grain crackers, hummus, which is made from garbanzo beans. So there's a lot of different things worked into here. The focus on plants does not mean that you have to be a vegetarian to enjoy the benefits of eating more plants. So a study in 2017 showed that consuming just 3% less animal protein, so replacing that with plant foods, was associated with a 19% lower risk of death from any of those chronic diseases. What about supplements? So the benefits of plants, unfortunately, cannot be isolated and packed into a capsule or pill. It doesn't work that way. So fruits and vegetables contain special plant nutrients that neutralize toxins and free radicals in the body. And that's what, if you hear the term antioxidant, that's what that means. Those plant compounds that are found in there, but those don't work alone. So trying to pull something out in a laboratory and put it into a pill, we have found does not have the same effect as consuming those antioxidants in their whole food form with all of the other things that you're getting in the package. If you think of that apple as a package, the fiber and the other vitamins and minerals that come with that. So there is no substitute for a diet that includes a wide variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, as well as those other plant foods like whole grains, nuts, and beans. So we're going to wrap up step 2 with a poll on the strategies for helping you include more plants. Again, there are a few suggestions here, and this poll is a multiple choice. If none of these options resonate with you and you want to put something else in the chat, please feel free to do that. And you may notice a theme of these polls and these reflection prompts. These are designed to get you thinking about about a starting point. What realistic and sustainable step can you take toward a bigger goal, and can you take on your health journey and on your nutrition journey? All right, so it looks like we had a couple votes for keeping frozen veggies and or fruit on hand. Super convenient. You don't have to worry about it going bad, and you can just pull it out and use it. Meal prepping. So preparing vegetables, cutting up vegetables ahead of time. That could look like doing, a big pan of roasted veggies for the week. So you have those as a go-to, preparing some salad ingredients, and trying one new veggie or fruit each week. And that can be a great one with kids, and to get kids involved in and excited about different foods, letting them help pick out some of those things. Step 3 is paying attention to and honoring your hunger and fullness cues. The image depicted here is one example of a hunger fullness scale. These scales typically go from 1 to 10, where 1 is the most hungry and 10 is the most full. And you see both ends of the scale are uncomfortable. And studies find that most people are most comfortable eating between about a level 3 and a level 7. So eating when you start to feel some hunger, maybe even a little stomach starting to growl, but before you're at this ravenous point, this painfully hungry point. And then stopping at when you're satisfied, full, but not uncomfortably full. Working with the hunger scale and getting attuned with your hunger and fullness cues takes practice. It's something that a lot of us have become detached from, but it is can be a very important component of health. And so why is that? Paying attention to our hunger and fullness cues can help with hunger management, which ties into a lot of other health things. So you're going to have better and more consistent energy throughout the day if you're not kind of swinging between, going back to this slide, being over hungry and then uncomfortably full, thinking about those options. Paying attention to hunger and fullness cues, eating before you're over hungry, stopping before you're over full is supportive of gut health and the microbiome. It can help with better sleep. It's empowering because you'll have a better ability to make food choices that are in line with your goals when you're not getting to that over hungry point. It's really hard because your brain is low on fuel. It's hard to think clearly. It's hard to make good decisions, and the decisions that you want to make, thoughtful decisions, when you're at this 1 or 2 point. And you'll also learn which foods or combinations of foods, which meals last, have staying power, and which don't. And that will inform your ability to plan satisfying meals and snacks. There are a lot of different ways we can learn to honor and manage our hunger. It starts by checking in with yourself and just starting to notice that. You might find a hunger scale resonates with you. And if so, you can, print one out, put it up where you can see it, to serve as a reminder to notice your hunger and fullness levels before and after you eat. You might take a few breaths before eating to lower stress, so you can better connect with your hunger and fullness signals. That has the added benefit of reducing stress. Even taking just a few breaths before a meal can help with your digestive process. So it can be a really important thing and a really powerful thing. A lot of us experience various GI issues, and taking a few breaths before you eat is one simple way that can have a lot of impact. Eating slowly gives your stomach a chance to send the full signal to your brain before you are overfull. So it will be easier. The more you can work on eating slowly, the more likely you are to be able to notice and respond before you're uncomfortably full. Some people like using some type of a food journal to better understand which foods leave them feeling content. And then finally, establishing structure when possible around how you eat. So thinking about sitting down to eat versus, just standing up, creating a place with minimal distractions when possible, and eating at fairly regular times of the day. So this is just a reflection question. There's not a poll with it, but just thinking about for yourself, do you eat at fairly consistent times, or, do you find yourself skipping meals? I work with a lot of clients, that lunch meal often gets put on the back burner with busy work days. So just reflecting on where you are now. If you're not eating at consistent times, why is that? And, what are those barriers, and which one or more of those are something that you could address? Step 4 is all about sleep. And we're looking at both quantity and quality of sleep here. So if you want to answer, and our poll here actually has 5 response options. Which one of those best describes your current sleep situation? All right, so it looks like a couple of you are saying struggle winding down, falling asleep. I can fall asleep, but I wake in the night and can't get back to sleep, or maybe it takes a while to get back to sleep. I struggle to get enough sleep. I used to have sleeping problems, but now I'm in a healthy sleep place. So yay for whoever responded to that, and hopefully a few of the things that we'll share here might help others of us be able to say that in the future. But for those of us who struggle with sleep, you are not alone. About 30% of adults don't get even 6 hours of sleep a night. And it can be hard to prioritize sleep, but it is so important. So poor sleep has been related to increased risk of chronic disease. It's not just chronic disease. So sleep impacts our immune system's ability to fight off illness. So as you can see here, we have more than people who are getting more than 7 hours of sleep, 6 to 7 hours of sleep, 5 to 6 or less than 5. And then these percentages, and indicated by these little virus particles here, are the chance of catching a cold virus when exposed to it. So you can see how that increases as the sleep decreases here. So when it comes to viruses, we should be talking about not only hand washing, but also getting enough sleep. There's also some interesting impact of sleep and appetite. So you see here is you have someone who's getting 8 hours of sleep a night compared to someone who's getting 5 hours of sleep a night. And we're looking at two different hormones that are related to signaling hunger and fullness in our body. I need to, let's see. Do I need to go back? Yeah, sorry. Okay. This is the slide. That poll was still up there. Okay, so this is the slide that I was just talked through on amount of sleep here on the bottom. So more than 7 hours of sleep, down to less than 5 hours of sleep, and the chances of catching a common cold when exposed to the virus with those sleep numbers. All right, and then this is the image for sleep and appetite. So you have someone who's getting 8 hours of sleep compared to someone who's getting 5 hours of sleep. Leptin is the hormone that is responsible for feeling full, and ghrelin is the hormone that is responsible for hunger. So what you see over here is, compared to the person who's getting 8 hours of sleep, the person who's getting 5 hours of sleep has 15.5% less leptin production and leptin circulating in their body. And conversely, that person who's getting less sleep has more ghrelin, the hormone responsible for hunger and encouraging us to eat. So less sleep equals more ghrelin and less leptin, which is not what we want to see. It's going to be, again, kind of tying into being harder to make those choices that we want to make, more likely to experience cravings, harder to, to respond to those cravings, maybe in a way that we would most like to. All right, and so this is just kind of another self-reflection question, thinking about what are your barriers to getting more sleep and or better quality sleep. And when thinking about that question, there are, various things to think about. So there are things that you can do during the daytime that can help sleep. So getting natural light, getting sunlight in your eyeballs as early in the day as you can. So going outside, even if just for a few minutes early in the day, harder in the winter when we have less hours of daylight, the sun doesn't come up as early, but still important if you can do that. And then everything else, all these other steps are really about kind of that sleep hygiene and your routine, as you'll see, starting in the 2 to 3 hours leading up to when you would like to be falling asleep. So that includes not eating right before you're going to bed, avoiding screens in the hour before bed. Room temperature makes a big difference. And then, just some things that may help you relax, some things, tools you could try to figure out what combination of these things helps you. And finally, for step 5, we're talking about focusing on habits, not willpower. And really here, we're looking at what changes can you make that are achievable, sustainable, and that you can build on to get to where you want to be. So some tips and then examples that go along with those tips. The first is keeping it small. So starting, you might have adding hard-boiled eggs to your cereal-based breakfast. So bumping up the protein, increasing the nutrient content of your breakfast. Make it attractive. So much more likely to do it if it tastes good, if it's fun. So, when it comes to things like vegetables, you don't have to eat plain steamed vegetables. You can try lots of different ways. You can add different herbs and spices. You can add cheese. You can add some salt. You're still going to get all of the benefits of eating the vegetables. This next one is important. Notice what it feels like when you get it right. This is kind of celebrating the wins, and it doesn't have to be a big win. But for example, noticing your energy shifts when you are making changes to your sleep routine, to your sleep timing, and are getting more sleep or better quality sleep. And then scheduling it. So whatever it is you're doing, this example here is setting a specific time every week that you would meal plan for the next week. And so this can tie in if you identified that meal planning and or meal prepping would help you with your vegetable and fruit consumption. Scheduling that planning time, scheduling that prepping time, and carving out time and doing it and making it happen. The scheduling it, as some of you may know, can also be really important with movement and physical activity related goals, making sure that those happen, and moving it from a good intention to something that happens. And then I came across something recently that I've been sharing with all of my clients, and it was about reframing your shoulds. So when we say, I should do something, or I should not have done that, that's putting a lot of judgment and sometimes feelings of guilt, shame around things. So instead of when you find yourself saying, I should do this, or I should have done this, reframing that, turning those I shoulds into I deserves. So for example, instead of I should go to bed earlier, try I deserve to go to bed earlier, and see what that reframing and that mental shift does in terms of your success with following through and making things happen. So bringing it all together, these are the 5 steps that we talked about tonight. Building a better start with breakfast, pumping up your plant intake, honoring your hunger and fullness, getting enough sleep, and focusing on small, sustainable habits that you have a plan on how you're going to achieve them, versus thinking that willpower is going to sustain you. So with that, I would like to open it up to your questions, questions that you have about the 5 steps, and you can feel free to put those in the chat or unmute yourself to ask a question. I think you should be able to unmute yourselves, but if that is not the case, please let me know. All right, so is there a big difference between almond butter and peanut butter? And we can definitely tie that question back into the 5 steps. So this is a question in the chat. And we talked about nut butters, both when it comes to breakfast, they can be a way to add fiber, protein, and some fats, which help us stay full longer to breakfast. There's not a big difference. I mean, almonds and peanuts are different foods with different nutrient profiles. So there's going to be, a slight difference if you look at the nutrition labels on a jar of almond butter compared to a jar of peanut butter. They'll have slightly different numbers in terms of how many grams of fat are in a serving, how many grams of protein. The bigger difference you really might find is if you're looking at whether it's almond butter, peanut butter, a different type of nut butter, how much salt is added, how much sugars are added, that kind of thing. What other questions do you have? All right, well, we did cover a lot of information tonight, so I thank you all for being here and for your participation. There are 3 more seminars in this series from Lifting Up STL, and those are going to be on these dates. They all fall on the 2nd Thursday of the month. So it will be February. The next one will be February 9th, where we'll be talking about nutrition facts and myths. March 9th, talking about mindful eating, which some of the things that we covered tonight on that, the hunger and fullness and paying attention to that, ties into mindful eating. And then the final seminar in this series will be on April 13th. We'll be talking about the power of food to fight inflammation. So information about all these seminars will be available on the Lifting Up STL website and social media channels, as well as information about all of their other programming. And really appreciate you joining us tonight, and hope to see you for Nutrition Facts and Myths on February 9th.